first time I watched that concrete truck crawl onto my bridge, I knew somebody was about to get hurt. The woman standing on the far bank was smiling like she had already won. She had no idea who she was talking to. My name is Harold Mercer. I am 68, and for 34 years I worked as a bridge load engineer for the state of West Virginia, which is not the kind of job that makes you interesting at dinner parties, but it teaches you exactly how much weight old steel can take before it stops being polite. The bridge crossed Laurel Run behind my farm outside Elkins Hollow, and my grandfather built it in 1927 with riveted steel, white oak planks, and the kind of confidence men had back when they believed a hammer could settle most arguments. It was narrow, rusty in all the honest places, and rated for 8 tons. Every Mercer knew that number the way other families knew birthdays. 8 tons, no more. Then Briar Ridge Estates went up across the creek, 62 new houses and an HOA president named Nadine Bellwether, who drove a silver Lexus and treated the whole valley like an extension of her kitchen counter. Her husband owned the development company, so I suppose the attitude came naturally. One Monday morning, I came home from the hardware store and found a loaded cement mixer easing across my bridge, the drum turning, the rear axles making the center span dip hard enough that I felt it in my stomach. I parked and washed the lower cord bow, then sprang back after the truck reached solid ground. Nadine was waiting beside her Lexus with a tumbler in one hand and a folded letter in the other. She said, "Harold, good news. Our engineer cleared the bridge for 40 tons. I looked at the paper. The signature belonged to Cyrus Bain, a man I had testified against 7 years earlier after he falsified a load report on a timber bridge. His license had been revoked. Nadine did not know that. She tapped the page and said, "So we will not need any more delays from you." I handed it back and told her the bridge was private, the posted limit was 8 tons, and no commercial truck had permission to cross. She gave me a sweet little smile that had no sweetness in it. "Harold, I understand you have had a difficult year since Evelyn passed, but maybe you should let the professionals handle the technical side. Evelyn had been my wife for 39 years. She died the previous winter, and for 1 second I nearly said something loud enough to echo through the hollow. Instead, I nodded, drove home, and took my grandfather's field notebook from the desk. That afternoon, I crawled under the bridge with a flashlight and tape measure. I found fresh fatigue cracks, crushed wood beneath the deck, and a bent rivet head somebody had tried to hammer flat. Those marks had not come from one truck. I pulled county aerial records, delivery schedules, and construction dates. 36 cement mixers had crossed in 11 weeks. Nadine was not asking to use my bridge. She had already been wearing it down one load at a time, betting the old widower across the creek would never understand the math. She was wrong. I closed the laptop, looked through the evening fog at the bridge my grandfather built, and called my daughter, the only other person in the family who knew exactly what 8 tons meant. My daughter, Mara, drove in from Charleston the next morning with her teenage daughter, June, asleep in the passenger seat and a hard case of testing equipment in the bed of her Tacoma. Mara is a structural engineer, quiet like her mother, stubborn like me, and she studies problems without wasting words. She hugged me on the porch, looked toward the creek, and said, "How bad?" I told her I did not know yet, which was the first lie I had told my daughter in years. We spent most of the day on the bridge. Mara set a dial gauge at mid-span, checked the gusset plates, and measured the lower cord while June held the light and wrote numbers in my grandfather's notebook. By late afternoon, Mara sat beside me on the bank and said the bridge had lost nearly half its strength. The center pin was wearing on one side, the deck beams were splitting, and 4 cracks were growing with every heavy crossing. She looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, one more loaded mixer might make it, or it might fold the center and trap the truck over the creek." I asked her to seal the report. She did it at my kitchen table while June made grilled cheese and pretended not to listen. That night, I emailed the report to Nadine, her husband Russell, the county road office, and the state environmental division. Nadine answered by sending a deputy to my house. Her complaint said I was harassing a community official with threatening technical documents. The deputy was 24 and polite enough to apologize before stepping onto my porch. I handed him Mara's report and asked him to read it first. He sat in Evelyn's old rocking chair, read every page, then looked toward the bridge and asked if trucks were still crossing. I told him 36 had already crossed and another pour was scheduled for Friday. He closed his notebook and said there had been no harassment, then gave me the name of a state investigator who handled construction fraud. Before leaving, he glanced at the 8-ton sign and said, "Some people see a warning, other people see a challenge." Nadine was the second kind. The following week, the trucks started coming before sunrise twice a day. Russell's company was using my bridge because the official haul road added 10 miles and required a bond he had never paid. I installed trail cameras, and Mara added a sensor that recorded the bridge's movement. We documented 7 more trucks in 4 days. Then the HOA sued me, claiming the 8-ton sign blocked community access. Their lawyer attached a supposed easement giving Briar Ridge rights across my bridge. It looked official until I checked the recording number, the notary seal, and the wording. The number belonged to an old timber lease. The notary had been dead for 3 years, and half the language came from a state template I had helped revise. My attorney, Calvin Reese, laughed so hard on the phone that he had to mute himself. He told me not to confront Nadine or block the road. "Just keep collecting, Harold," he said. "Arrogant people are generous with evidence." 2 days later, June and I were eating sandwiches on the porch when the bridge made a metallic groan that I felt in my ribs. We ran to the creek. A loaded mixer was 3/4 across, the center sagging so far the driver could see daylight between the planks. He got over, climbed down shaking, and asked what the bridge was rated for. When I said 8 tons, he went pale. Dispatch had shown him Nadine's 40-ton letter. He said he would never cross again, and he was fired the next morning. June stood beside the bent railing and said, "Grandpa, she's going to kill somebody." That was when this stopped being a property dispute. I pulled every permit Russell Bellwether had filed, every road bond, environmental notice, and lawsuit. By midnight, I had found unpaid haul fees, falsified drainage reports, a prior settlement for damaging a county bridge, and payments connecting the local road commissioner to Russell. Then I found the worst part. Briar Ridge's second phase sat above an abandoned minefield with 2 documented sinkholes, one under a lot sold to a young family. Russell had hidden it. I sat alone in my study with Evelyn's reading glasses beside the lamp and felt something inside me settle. Anger is loud when it first arrives, but real anger gets quiet. I called Calvin, then Mara, then the state investigator. By sunrise, we were no longer trying to stop the next truck. We were preparing to let one truck prove everything. Calvin called it controlled proof. Mara called it the most dangerous idea I had ever had, and June called it exactly what Nadine deserved. We replaced the worn center pin with a calibrated shear pin, one designed to hold every legal load and fail cleanly when another overloaded mixer reached the midpoint. The safety cables beneath the deck would catch the span, the truck would drop less than 18 inches, and nobody would go into the creek. Mara sealed the design, the state inspector installed weight sensors, and investigator Lena Cross parked 2 troopers half a mile down the road. At sunrise on Friday, I sat on the porch with black coffee in my grandfather's notebook while fog lifted off Laurel Run. At 8:42, a Mack mixer appeared around the bend. The driver slowed at the 8-ton sign, looked toward Nadine's SUV behind him, then rolled forward. The sensor read 60,800 pounds. I heard Nadine shout from the road, "Just drive it across. Harold cannot stop you." The truck reached the center. The pin sheared with one hard metallic snap, and a bridge settled into the cables exactly as designed. The mixer stopped, tilted but secure. The driver climbed out, pale and furious. 10 seconds later, the troopers came around the bend. Nadine arrived first, waving her phone and screaming that I had destroyed community property. Lena stepped in front of her and said, "Mrs. Klein, Bellwether, this bridge is private property, and the truck currently stranded on it is evidence." Russell pulled up behind her and started calling the county commissioner. That was unfortunate because the commissioner had been arrested 40 minutes earlier on bribery and wire fraud charges. Calvin arrived with the forged easement, Mara's sealed report, 43 camera recordings, and the mine subsidence files. The environmental team shut down Briar Ridge Phase 2 before lunch. By evening, the HOA board had resigned. Nadine kept insisting she had relied on an engineer, so I handed her a copy of the state bridge manual and told her, quietly, I wrote the load rating chapter. For once, she had nothing to say. Russell later pleaded guilty to construction fraud, environmental violations, and hiding the abandoned mine from buyers. Nadine received prison time for forgery, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy, along with a permanent ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. The families who had bought Phase 2 lots got their deposits back, and the land was eventually transferred into a conservation corridor. Mara designed the bridge restoration the following spring. We kept the original steel, replaced the oak deck, repaired every crack, and left the limit at 8 tons. June helped bolt a bronze plaque to the south approach. It read, "Built by Samuel Mercer, 1927. Restored by his family, 2026. Know the weight before you cross." That evening, the 3 of us sat beside the creek eating pie from the Elkins Hollow Diner, and I realized the bridge had never really been the trap. The trap was Nadine believing an old man would stay quiet because grief had made him weak. Grief had not made me weak. It had simply taught me not to waste time arguing with people who had already chosen not to listen. So tell me, did I go too far by engineering the failure, or was it the only responsible way to stop someone before they killed an innocent driver? Leave your judgment in the comments, and share this story with anyone who has ever watched an HOA confuse authority with ownership.